Why are you
Okay.
jealous?
And I'm jealous of everybody. That's my life. It gives me jealousy gives me strength. Hey, what's the name of this show again? It's Sex Love. It's Sex, Love, and Rock and Roll. And I'm being told that I'm the host. My name is Christopher Reed. I'm also known as Kid from Kid and Play. You may know me from movies such as House Party, House Party 2, and in an amazing display of acting risk, House Party 3. So what we're trying to do here is something very, very unique. We have some very special people that we're going to take this ride with as we try to navigate this world that we're living in right now. As I said, I'm going to be with you. Just call me Kid. We have some great people with us. We have a very well renowned sex therapist, Valerie Popple. She's with
Hey.
us. Say right.
Hello.
Popple, get it popping with the Popple.
I'm popping back here.
Right. And we also have an amazing medical giant of a mind who also is a sommelier. Who knew?
Ooh,
And
yeah.
that, right. We call him Dr. Eves, but he has an amazing last name that I already forgot. And so,
Hello, everyone. My name
Right.
is Dr. Eve DeRosa.
DeRosso, that's right. I know, because it reminded me of a delicious meal. DeRosso. But you know what? But if I can be serious with for a moment, which won't be long, I think what we're all trying to do with this meeting of the minds, if you will, is just try to discuss and talk about what people are going through these days with the pandemic and the good, the bad, and the ugly, so to speak, because there's so much of that going on. And in addition, so what I think what I'd like to do is give my co-host a chance to maybe reintroduce themselves and give them a little bit of background. We'll start with you. What do you have like can we call you Dr. Val? What are your closest patients call you?
Dr. Love.
Dr.
Dr. Love.
Dr. Love. You remember that record?
You know, honestly.
Dr. Love. He can cure my everything. He can make me well again. Dr. Love. He ain't got no prescription. Only he write my prescription. Dr. Love.
Dr. Love. But a lot of my clients actually, because
that's a great name.
They call me the anal sex doctor.
What?
Talk about anal sex doctor.
Hey.
Dr. Eve's eyes was like.
We just met, right? Can my eyes get any bigger? They're already huge.
I talk about anal sex a lot.
So, whoa!
I do. I know, right? And we go.
All right.
Yeah. So that's what they. But no.
All right. I'm gonna have you talk to my lady. Maybe we can get on the right side of this thing. Because what I'm saying ain't working.
You're hysterical. So my name is Dr. Val. That's what I go by. And I am in Bethany Beach, Delaware. I am a clinical sexologist, a sexual researcher, and an author and a motivational speaker. I teach and travel all around the world on human sexuality, on sexual empowerment, and I also am a professional belly dancer. I know, don't fall out the seats. I know, like, would you really professional belly dance? That's my hobby, believe it or not. I've been belly dancing for 30 some years. Right. I love it.
if all else fails,
All else fails me to get some money, I'll just, do a little shimmy or something. I don't know. But that's my hobby. I have been in this industry now for about, I guess about 15 years. I got into human sexuality from law because I have a stepson who has Asperger's, and to watch him date as a male, a 30-plus-year-old male with no sexual experience with Asperger's, like I said, it was a cluster. Well, excuse my French. It was just a mess. So that's what made me actually go into clinical sexology and understanding the science behind the sex. And that is what I do. I speak about science and sex. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's I mean, just briefly, because that the topic is not always easy for people to broach, to discuss,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure in these particular times, relationships are under amazing stress. I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Right here, but and I'm sure sex and love have a lot to do with it. I mean, do you find that the people that you deal with, your patients, do times like this require what I mean? Are these times extra stressful, more than normal?
Absolutely. With not everyone is safe in their home being quarantined. That's just a reality. Not everyone is safe. And there, domestic violence, sexual abuse is on the rise all over the world because of COVID and being quarantined. I know many of my clients, who are the victims of sexual abuse and domestic violence right now. We recommend shelters, and they're full because there's just nowhere for them to go. I try to find resources, and there's not a lot out there right now. And so it's a very scary situation because your home is supposed to be your sanctuary, but for many, it's not their sanctuary. And with COVID, with the economic situation, with the health situations, mental, spiritually, and just the racial tension in this country right now, everyone is in a hyper state of anxiety. And so sex and relationships, it is deteriorating their relationships. There's more divorces now than there were last year. And with COVID, of course, if you're single, what do? You can't get that hookup, right?
Exactly. What do you
can't get that hookup?
I know. What? That's interesting. What do you do? Like, what I mean? Like my girlfriend and I, some days we just look at each other and be like, we all we got, So
we all we got. And that's the truth.
We's all we's got,
It's so true. That's all we got. So, a lot of us are just really suffering right now.
No question. And let me move on to our next person that's smarter than me. Dr. Eves, please, as you betwixt your sips of wine, give us a little background on you, and make sure you tell us where you got that chandelier.
That chandelier was not approved by me. It just showed up. It just showed up, and I have to live with it.
That chandelier is sexy.
Okay, but again, I didn't approve of it. No one asked me. It just showed up. But that's life.
Exactly.
That's what I like to hear.
But welcome.
Stay in your lane, doctor.
Oh, here we go.
Hey, wow. We have hostile company here.
That's right.
But I'm used to it. So, there's a lot of sections to all of us. One of my sections is being a physician, an emergency medicine physician. My job here is to make sure everyone is safe. It's not to judge whatever is mentioned, I've heard a few things. It's all good. It's all good. My job here is to keep you safe. Whatever floats your boat, I may at times say, time out. This is not safe.
Yeah.
It's my sole purpose on life. I'm not going to judge you.
Safety
Nothing
first.
to say about what you do.
You know
Exactly.
what? That's we need that. You know what
Yes.
I mean? If Dr. Eves, if you ever feel like we're going off the rails, you know,
Time out.
please restrain it. Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
And
Listen,
all right, and last but not least,
Restrain?
we've just been joined by part of the production team that has put us together. Selena, would you please kind of bring yourself into
Hi, guys.
yeah,
I don't really know how to introduce myself.
Well, you could start out by saying that you're the sponsor of the show and the name of your mask company and your
right.
domain.
Well, okay.
And also what kind of car you pushing there? It looks fancy.
Right.
I'm in my
Right.
Lexus.
Nice.
Oh, there you go.
I'm in a little Lexus. It's not fancy, but it does the job. So my name is Selena Gauthier, and I am one of the idea makers of this program, you know, one of the people that thought it would be fun and entertaining to hear different individuals talk on subjects that we all think about, and to bring a little humor into this scary time. And, you know, just it's entertaining and fun, and we all need to look outside the box and just connect in different ways. And that's what I hope we are able to do with this program.
Awesome.
And
awesome.
I have a face mask business called Kyo Mask, and I make face masks. I lived in Asia for 8 years. Mm-hmm. So the idea of wearing a face mask is very normal to me. And when it came about in January that all of a sudden there was this big, you know, limited resource for face masks, I started importing them from my Thai production people. So
Selena, let me ask you something real quick, because this is something that I read about months ago, and you could probably verify whether or not this was true or not. What I read was last year when there was all this unrest in China, in Hong Kong, mm-hmm. when the people were protesting against the government, and what I understood was those people wore masks every day because the government was gassing.
The culture in Asia is to historically I lived there in the early 90s mm-hmm. for 8 years. And at that time, during seasonal flus or colds or viruses, so in the fall, in the spring, and in the winter, if you are feeling unwell, even a sniffle, you wear a face mask to prevent mm-hmm. your germs from being spread. It's just a common practice.
Okay.
So that is, I'm very sure that they were wearing face masks because that's very common in it.
And so that when and this was prior. This was in the months prior to the pandemic.
Yeah, right.
And so it seemed like, you know, that culture, as you point out, wearing a mask wasn't a big deal. Like, it's not a big deal. It's a Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Whereas it's and maybe we can kind of get into this topic because it's very important.
People in America are pissed off at being asked to wear face masks.
I mean, but I don't understand it. And we can talk from, a medical standpoint. I'm just talking about just from a regular, person, trying to go out and about.
I think it's ignorance, and
people think it's an assault on their freedom when it's not really. When to me it's giving you freedom. It's giving you the freedom to be healthy, to be safe.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's
Does that
giving
make
you
any
the
sense?
freedom to interact in a safe way with less restriction on having to stay home.
Exactly.
So it should be embraced, but there is a lot of resistance.
A lot. To wear a mask for 30 minutes to go into Walmart. And our doctors and nurses are wearing them for, 8 to 10, 16 hours a day. And it's just ridiculous to hear in this country people bitching about wearing these face masks to go into a store. It's infringing on their civil liberties. I'm like, what civil liberty about wearing a face mask? It makes no sense to me. Does it come from a sense of just privilege? I don't know where it comes from. That you have the right to just spread this without consequences to other people. I'm protecting myself and your family. And do the same. Exactly, Jeff, right? I like that. Yes.
Well, it's the same mentality as not wearing a condom when the AIDS outbreak was really and guys were just like, hell no, I'm going bareback, baby. I don't care. What? I mean, why is it so hard to put a condom on, gentlemen? What's going on with that?
So,
from coming from a guy that has 3 kids by different women, I don't know. And I'm
clearly don't like wearing condoms, kid.
And I'm a rapper, so rappers and condoms don't really like.
Yeah, they don't mesh, do they?
Yeah. So this is where I jump in and say that this practice is not safe. You should wear a condom. But the question is, why did you not wear a condom? And again, I'm not judging, but when I have my patients in front of me and they do things that I may judge not appropriate, or I can't confront them with that, right? So I ask, so what happened? What were you thinking at the moment? Invariably, it was, I wasn't thinking. I was drinking. I was high. And there, so you have to try to whatever it is, you got to get to the root.
Done that. Unfortunately, I think all of us have gone, just go for it.
Wait. She said it was cool too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There you go.
How you know she wanted a condom? She might have been like, you know what I mean? Like, it's in the moment, but trust me, in the aftermath,
So we can't judge. So we got to try to understand. We got to try to understand why people don't wear masks, because if you just go at them and say, this is retarded, this is dumb.
Right, you have to be kind. There's no reason not to approach it with kindness. You can inform in a kind way. And I think that by making them a little more fashionable, it also helps make them trendy.
Yes,
that is the youth of today. If people that they look up to, artists and entertainers, are wearing a trendy mask, then those people want to wear one. They don't care.
Exactly.
So I think that it'll quickly adapt. I think that Americans quickly adapt to what's best for them.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Selena, the word quickly, I don't know if it really,
well, I'm hopeful.
Mask right now.
I'm hopeful. They will
I'm
adapt.
hopeful.
But the thing is, American is not American.
The big cities like New York and LA and Chicago, those people are adapting quickly. They really are.
Good.
Yeah.
More so than the rural area.
You got your kid and play on.
Kid.
Mask.
Look at that.
That's so cute.
That's hot.
I'm saving my own life with me.
You know what, Dr. Eves, when you mentioned like we're not judging, like this space is not about judgment, right? We are not judging anybody.
Exactly.
But let me.
We are going to inform, we're going to educate, and have adult conversations around adult issues that can better our community. I think that's what our goal is. What you say, Dr. Eves?
Absolutely. But I will also tell you, some people respond, we could throw all the stars, kid and play and try to influence. Some people will tell you simply, I respond to a higher being. I respond to religion. I respond to God. And actually what we're seeing in New York City is exactly this. There are people in our community that we love and our neighbors, but they don't necessarily want to hear or believe or validate anything I have to say.
I think that fear generally does cause, people to traditionally turn to their faith. And this is a very fearful time. This pandemic is like the polio pandemic or something. It's a very fearful time. So more and more people will turn to faith.
Now, all right. So let's as we move forward and continue to discuss how, to me, I think, this year has obviously been, the craziest year in most of our lives. And just when you think it can't get any crazier, it does. The president has the virus. The most protected, supposedly.
But he didn't follow any rules.
He didn't follow any rules, and he's never followed any rule.
Ever.
I'm from New York. This is what I couldn't understand. When in his rise to power, because being so familiar with him growing up in New York City, I'm like, are you serious? Like this guy? Like you want to follow this guy? This guy is this guy? You know what I'm saying? And just when you think it can't get any crazier, it does. Like I recently took my first trip out of town a couple of weeks ago. I went to do some comedy in Texas, in Houston, and I live in Los Angeles. And in Los Angeles, for the most part, people are, we're kind of lefty out here. People are pretty vigilant. There's some areas and in some pockets where people are very resistant to wearing masks and the social distancing and those things. But for most of us here in Southern California, people abide by it. In Texas, I didn't see it as much. Much more of a, don't tell me what to do, type of thing. And so I was, that made me extra cautious. And I'm just wondering, like, moving forward, because I don't see, I'm not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And if the president having this doesn't shake people up, I don't know what will. I don't know if it doesn't, if the president getting it won't shake it up, if trendy house party masks won't shake it up, like, what do you do?
If he gets very ill, that's like.
Well, and Dr. Eves.
You don't hope people get ill, but is that what it's going to take?
But Dr. Eves, to that point, this is one of the things that I've been thinking about over the last few days, because one of the questions that the president's doctors will not answer is, when was his last negative test? They ask it and ask it and ask it, and they can't get an answer, which obviously leads me to believe that the talk that they get tested every day, they don't. Can you imagine? He wasn't getting tested every day, and they don't want to tell you when his last negative test was, and they want you to think that his assistant, the Hope Hicks, was the spreader. No, he's the spreader. He's the spreader. I mean, to me, he's as much likely to be the spreader as anybody else. And can't you, and knowing his personality, the way he comes across, can you just imagine this guy takes a test every day or several times a day? I don't believe it.
Yeah.
I don't believe it.
So unfortunately, there is this phenomenon in medicine called VIP care. And VIP care is actually the worst care. And that's, one of the things I used to do that I've gotten out of early in my career. Imagine taking care of Michael Jackson. Imagine taking care of Prince, heroes in our community. The pressure as a doctor, you take an oath. Take an oath to do no harm. You take an oath to be ethical, to be moral. And now you are taking care of the leader of the free world, the most powerful guy on this earth. And you want to maintain that relationship because it's so important to you. That has to, and it does, unfortunately, skew your judgment. And that's why VIP care is actually not the best care. And that's what we're seeing with our president, unfortunately.
So
I don't think that the doctors are dictating what he does. I think he is dictating what the doctors do.
But Dr. Eves, can you imagine? Can you imagine, the president was under your care in these circumstances, and he turns around and says, "Yo, man, I wanna take a joyride around the front of Bethesda, in front of Walter Reed. I want to take a couple of laps around Walter Reed." You know what I mean? Is that must be what you're speaking about, because that no doctor would recommend that or advise it to be safe. What about those poor Secret Service, like sitting around in the house all day watching this stuff? And I'm like, what part of this is sane? What part of it is brave? What part of it makes any sense at all? I'm sure you would have recommended against that.
I would have, but the thing I would not have done was signed up for that job, understanding what that job means. And it's sometimes we fire patients because we know that it's not productive. We know that they're not following our recommendations, and quite frankly, they're doing harm to themselves. And I can't co-sign on that. I would never co-sign on that.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, there are some doctors, for whatever reason, he needs a doctor. He needs doctors around him who have taken that job. And I feel for them. I absolutely feel for them. I've, been in positions where, you had to make tough judgments, but, you want to be moral, you want to be ethical, you want to do the right thing. And you have to be very careful of the influence, the power structure, the power dynamics in that situation. It's like LeBron coming down at you. Like, you just,
sure.
he's going to dunk on you.
Right.
And nothing you can do.
Dr. Val, I want to jump to you real quick. In these days and times, relationships are under siege. Right. I would tend to think, and mine might be one of them. But look, relationships are tough in the best of times. Mm-hmm. I was married. I'm divorced. I was married just 2.5 years, but it felt like 12 years a slave. But that's another story. But I'm quite sure that under these circumstances, relationships are under more pressure than ever before. What can people do? I mean, how much Netflix can you watch? I mean, or is this pandemic the really true test of how strong or how weak your relationship may be?
I wouldn't say it's a true test of how strong or how weak your relationship is. I think in this environment, you have to set new boundaries in your relationship because you're quarantining together. You have to set new boundaries. For an example, my husband and I were quarantining. When we first quarantined, he was up my ass 24/7. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? It was because he wasn't used to being around me so much. And I said, honey, and it got on my nerves. I wanted to cuss him out like every day. I was so frustrated with the why. Why are you asking me why I'm doing this, right? And so I said, okay, there's a new rule. You get 3 whys per day. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, new rule. You get 3 whys per day and don't waste them. So you better think about your whys before you put them out there. Do you know we repeated this and the whys has almost gone down to 2 a day? And he's conscious. He's like, oh, I have 1 more left, huh? I'm like, yeah, you have 1, so don't waste it. But what it did, we had to sit down and have this conversation because what was getting on my nerves was getting on his nerves. It was different. And we've been together forever. And so we had to have a new conversation about, okay, between the hours of 10 to 12, I'm upstairs or you're downstairs. I don't want to see you. And we had to have those conversations. I'll go in the bedroom for 3 or 4 hours. So to answer you, couples need to reinvent and create new boundaries to keep them safe and sane so they can be productive. Right. Because, naturally we just want to be close. And then after a while, it's like, it's all cute in the beginning. Like, oh, honey, it's 12 o'clock. Let's go have sex. Oh, it's 1 o'clock. Let's go watch Netflix. Well, how much Netflix can you watch? I'm on to like the German Netflix now. I don't run out the US Netflix.
Oh my God. Right.
You Spanish. You like those Spanish shows.
I do.
Right. But you know what? I think it's an important point that you're bringing up is, and I think it's something that maybe a lot of people take for granted or they didn't realize how much being apart from your partner is as important as the time that you do spend together, because now it's and what we used to say back in the days, we used to say like, man, I don't want nobody all up under me, that distance, that space is something that we don't have right now. Everybody's all up under everybody, so everybody's flaws and everybody's imperfections are on display all day. And that's kind of tough. I mean, so speak to that. Like like you said, the space is important. It doesn't mean I don't love you. It just means I can't stand you right now.
Right. And that's the word, like right now. Like, I'm not mad at you. I just need my space. It has nothing to do with you.
Right.
And you can tell your partner, this is not about you. Right. This is about my spiritualness.
I want you dead right now. But I would bring you back to life in a half an hour. But right now, I wish you were dead.
Right. I want to roll over your neck with my truck kind of mentality.
Totally. And there's a look my girlfriend gives me now that I just know it's like, I'm gonna put you in a home. And I'm like, oh. But exactly. But we're trying. I'm sorry, Selena. Go ahead. You were getting ready to say something?
Oh, I keep getting bumped off.
That's all right. It's Alexis.
I'm sitting in my car. I'm set decorating a movie in Canada.
Okay. What part of Canada?
So I'm in British Columbia.
Okay, cool.
I'm in a place called Summerland
Okay,
in
that's
the
good.
interior of British Columbia, about 3 hours from Vancouver.
Okay, wow, you talk about the boonies. You're really in the
And I'm
boonies.
set decorating a Hallmark movie, a Christmas Hallmark movie
Really?
called
Oh,
The
okay.
Angel Tree.
Okay,
Aren't you
what's it?
special?
We like those Hallmark movies.
I'm a jack
right?
of all trades.
That is for sure. You are.
That's what's up. Okay, wait. So let me wait. Hold on. Okay.
So Dr. Valerie, while Chris is checking
So-
out, doing some research.
Yeah, go ahead.
I thought you said 3 wives. WIVES. You gave your husband. It was 3 Ys.
Why? WHY.
Oh, I really got like, I really was, I was like, but it was 3 Ys. Okay.
Wives, not
Right.
wives, Dr. Eves,
No.
but my husband would like, to have the 3
She don't
wives.
live in Utah. She ain't no Mormon.
Yeah, Gert would like 3 wives.
Yeah, or no, we can talk about swinging later on. We can talk about that.
Let me tell you something. The older I get, when you were younger, you're like, yeah, I got 3 wives. Oh God, I can barely deal with one woman. Like, can you imagine 3 wives, like 3 other opinions and 3? Oh no, no. You know what? I'm in my 50s. Sleep is the new sex.
Exactly. Yeah, I have to tell you a story about having
all I
these
heard
wives.
was Lena and sex.
Huh?
Wait, let me tell you.
Lena and sex, and I got all excited.
Listen, this is the deal. This is the change that I've seen in my life. When you were younger, when I, as a young man, you want to jump around, and when it came time to having sex, you was with it, and a lot of times the woman is like, look, why do we gotta have sex? Can we just cuddle? Can we just, no, we're like, nah, this and that, right? And she's like, can we just cuddle and spoon and kind of that? That was back in the days.
Where are you
Nowadays, the woman is like, come on, let's hit it, let's go. And I'm like, can we just cuddle? I just want to sleep. Can we just cuddle?
Okay, awesome. I'll see you there.
Look, what are you ordering from McDonald's? What are you doing over there?
Selena, mute yourself.
I'm sorry. I'm just
she's at the Home
direction.
Depot. She's at the Home Depot drive-through.
I think so.
I am in a moon little town. I'm actually about to get over.
But yeah, nowadays, like I said, I'm much more predisposed to a good nap than a good nut.
And it's horrible reception, so I keep losing you guys. I'm really sorry.
That's all right.
That's okay. That's all right.
You're in the boonies.
Yes.
You're in the boonies.
You're in the boonies.
But just overall, from a medical standpoint, from a therapist standpoint, these times are so. Like I said, it's unlike anything that most of us have ever been through. And like I said, me personally, like, I don't see the light. Everybody's talking about can't wait for 2020 to be over. But if 2020 is over, it doesn't mean that these circumstances are over. We have no idea how and when things will change, or will they ever change. One of the things that I worry about is coming from New York, coming from, like the hip hop game, coming from, an African-American background. One of the things that I miss is, like, I'm a touchy-feely guy. You know what I mean? Like, when I see my friends, we like, the rappers, we got like 5-minute hugs. My man. You know what I mean? That's the type of, you know what I'm saying? That's a Tuesday. And we can't do that anymore. We don't really do that anymore. And I wonder if we'll ever have those days again. You know, the closeness. And you know how it is. Certain cultures aren't like that. Look, I have friends of mine that are like germaphobes that they're loving this. You know, the Howie Mandels and the Bill Maher's of the world, they love this. They like, I don't want to touch none of you motherfuckers ever again. But the rest of us aren't really like that. I wonder if we'll ever get to that closeness again. What do you think?
I think we will. I think the world has been through many pandemics. This is not the first. It won't be the last, unfortunately, but I think this is why it's so critical that we do the right things so we can get back to that time, that space. And it's not going to last forever. There will be a vaccination. The treatment has already gotten better. We treat patients better, and we have better know-how than we did back in March and April. And we're seeing that in the statistics that people are surviving COVID in a much better way. If you were intubated, if you had COVID, that was a death sentence. You would pretty much have a high probability of dying. Now, if you're intubated, it's maybe at 35%, which is still not great, but we've gotten better. So I want to be hopeful, and I think everything has been poured in terms of resources into finding a vaccination and hopefully maybe even some therapeutic treatment for this. So we have to be hopeful.
I agree, Dr. Eves. I believe that, this too shall pass. And there'll be new mandates set in place to keep us safe. I do think that there will be a lot of people, especially I work a lot in the lifestyle industry. I think you guys know what the lifestyle is, swinging industry. I work with that population quite a bit as a sexual scientist. And I travel around the world on the cruise ships and going to cities and events and recreational events, speaking around sex and the lifestyle. And with myself, along with the World Association of Sex, there are some new guidelines that are being put in place. Because right now people are scared, but this too shall pass. And I think there will be some that will be like, hands off for a long time, but it's going to pass. People just need to know that there is an alternative out there that's going to keep them safe. And they need to feel like our medical profession, is doing an amazing job with this, really trying to get into the front of this all over the world. And if our leader, Trump, would just be that advocate, be that powerful person to say, hey, you know what? Wear your mask, social distance, do all the things we're supposed to be doing. It would have changed the game. As a leader, it would have changed the game. He would have saved thousands of lives by being a leader and not being so selfish.
Yeah, and one of the to that point, Dr. Val and Dr. Eves, you can speak to this as well, and even Selena with her experience in Asia. Isn't it to me, when I look at how Asia has seemed to stem the tide of COVID, or just certainly seem to be dealing with it better than us, less lives lost, and this is apparently where it started from. And they've been able to kind of manage it, and we've just haven't done it. And
well, there's the biggest difference between
we lost her.
Yeah, she's in a tree. But Dr. Val, I guess, me and you were still rocking. Okay. Yeah, I'm just as an observer, I'm just amazed that certain cultures or certain areas around the world have dealt with it so much better than we have. And we're supposed to have the brightest minds, and we got the most money, we got the most people, but we're not functioning properly. And I don't, I'm a little more skeptical, because I think it's a mindset that has to change.
Yes. So, look, again, I try to understand people. To be able to take care of people, I have to understand people. And America is a concept. It's not one thing, and there are certain cultures that tend to be true unified cultures. The leaders, one voice, and that's it. I have a sister who teaches in China, and she showed me the kids in her classroom when they reopened. The kids are in their cubicles with their hand sanitizer, with their mask, doing their work. My 6-year-old son in America is not going to sit in anybody's cubicle. He's not going to respond necessarily to the teacher. I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. Probably a bad thing, right? He should respond to authority. But the American concept, it is a concept, allows for freedom. Allows for free thought, for expressing yourself. And again, we need to understand people. We need to understand cultures. We don't necessarily need to judge. But that is a difference. When the leader in China says X, everyone does X. We had a situation in the US, in New York, where Long Island, they were partying on Long Island in Nassau, restaurants were open, and Queens was on lockdown. Well, that doesn't make sense, right? You get in your car, you go from Queens to Long Island, but there was no one national jurisdiction over that, unfortunately. So, not right, not wrong, but that there is a difference.
Right. Well, let me bring this up to you guys, because this is kind of like, my so-called field of expertise is, we're in a time like this, in a pandemic, in one of the craziest years that we've all ever experienced. Where do you find the laughter? Where do you find the love? And it's that's, like I said, that's kind of my job. But this is a tough year to find laughter. But it's there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's there, even in the most tragic circumstances that we've all been experiencing. There's laughter there. And one of the things that I'm finding out is, for example, my movies have never, my old school movies have never been more popular than right now. I think people tend to, in times of crisis, they tend to go back to the music and the entertainment that they knew growing up, when times were better. So, they're playing House Party off the roof. They're playing my old songs like out the
There's also that app called House Party Kid that kind of brought you back to the forefront.
What was that? I don't even know about that.
Yeah, there's this app where the kids go on this app called House Party, and they hang out together virtually.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. I mean, so I'm as an entertainer trying to get my footing in this brave new world. Where's the love? Where does the love come? Where does the laughter come from, Dr. Val?
That's a really good question, and I'm going to answer it in a way that I would actually just talk to one of my clients, and it's about self-care.
She's going to say anal.
Anal, right? That's another topic we'll talk about later. But it really comes down to setting up a self-love. I want to say a self-love procedure or a self-love practice, and I'm not talking masturbation. I'm talking about things.
Seriously. Yeah.
Right. For the spirit, for the mind, and for the body, and to heal it and to feel good about it. And I really work from the principle of talking to people about the mind, the energy, the body, the emotion, and the spirit. And at this time, you really have to tap into those 5 things for self-care. And being an African-American woman in this country right now, with so much hyper anxiety around anti-Blackness, I found myself slipping emotionally because I was coming from a state of fear a lot. I was very anxious. I was very afraid to go out of my neighborhood to drive my car. And I really forgot for my own self to take care of my mind, my emotion, my body, my energy, and my spirit. So I think it's really important right now, Christopher, is for people, they really have to tap into themselves and set up a practice. If it's taking a walk with all the necessary precautions, if it's meditating, you know, there's a plethora of online courses, and a lot of them are free right now, that you can tap into to help you mind and body and emotion, to really help ground you. So I think it's important for people to do that, because if it's not, you go crazy. And being confined with what's going on with the news, if you're an African American, you know, to see, you know, the horrific deaths of our people just played out constantly, it's trauma, and the trauma shows up in our bodies, whether we know it or not. Every time you watch CNN and you see, you know, someone dying over and over, it affects your body.
Yeah.
And so we have to really take care of ourselves.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's one of the things that I've tried to do it for many years. You know, like I'm really like a news hound, and sometimes I just feel like I can't watch it. Like I need to disconnect, because invariably, you know, with the 24-hour news cycle, they're just kind of regurgitating, and you know, it's the same news. Right. And if it continually makes you upset, like, you know what I mean? Like we know people's names that we're not supposed to know. Exactly. You know, I remember a few years ago, I had a friend of mine invited me out to an event here in Los Angeles, and I got to meet Trayvon Martin's mother. And I just remember being introduced to her, and I was just in that moment, I was just so overwhelmed. I was sad, so sad, because I was like, what do I say to this woman? What there's nothing that I could say. Like, I was searching the depths of my mind, like, what can I say something encouraging? Can I say something to inspire? Can I say something to, and there was nothing. There was nothing. And that's Trayvon Martin. Mm-hmm. That's 4 or 5 years ago. Right. I could give you, you know what I mean? I could give you a dozen names since then, more than that. And, you know, once again, to your point, Dr. Val, I think it makes it that much tougher in a pandemic. Like, you know, we were already, you know, I was already depressed about police brutality. I was already depressed about, you know, certain things that are facing us. And then throw a pandemic on top of that. I'm like, man, you have to be very tough, and people really have to lean on one another.
Absolutely. In these and you know, I think that you know that the system of racism, which has kept us in this economic bondage and mental bondage and emotional bondage for so long. And then you're already suffering in so many ways. This is the system of itself, not individual, but the system, which to me sometimes is designed just to keep us in bondage. It's designed that way. But there's a, in spite of all of this ugliness in the world, you know, the universe is opening a door. And that door, we have to capitalize on it. And I mean capitalize on it. And we have to own that door. You know, no longer will I personally accept a piece of the pie from the masses table. I'm going to build my own table, and I will invite you to the table. That's been my attitude that's carried me through this. I am not here for the Save the Negro Foundation that I see a lot of stuff is coming out of. Quit asking me about how we could uplift Black people coming from a white person. We within our community, we can have conversations about what we need, not what you're going to give us. That's a different conversation to have. So what do we need in our community, really, that's going to take us out of all of this and make us stronger once we get past this? Because the door is open for us, you know, and there's so much. And Dr. Isa, I would love to hear your thoughts about physically, you know, what we've gone through and what's happened to our bodies and what we can do to take care of ourselves from a physical standpoint, from a medical standpoint.
So thank you for that question. Today I actually convened a session with my department. It's called Schwartz Rounds, and we've had these before. And what it focuses on are the emotional toll that impact us as providers taking care of people with horrific stories and things that have happened to them. So we convened this event, and before we did it, we sent a survey. The survey had some open-ended questions, and it says, basically, how are you doing? What are your concerns about a resurgence of COVID? What are your concerns about the racial tensions and discourse in America? And we asked nurses, doctors, janitors, everybody in the hospital this was open to. And what they responded in an anonymous way was heart-wrenching. And what I told my staff is, that person next to you, you have no idea what they're carrying when they come to work. And for us, that's critical. The healers, the people who are taking care of you, need healing also. And to me as a leader, I felt that it was very important that we recognize that we're all hurting. And as professionals, we come in, we put on our game face. We take care of our patients, we do what it takes, but we're carrying a lot of baggage. And at the end of the session, what I told everyone, I said, I want you to take one person to the side and just ask them, how are you doing? Ask them something about them. Often you work with someone side by side. You don't know where they live. You don't know how many kids they have. You don't know how they got to work. You don't know if they had lunch money. Some of the people who work side by side with us don't even have enough to sustain a normal lifestyle. And yet they are a part of the healing team. So, I think in this kind of situation, I think what we're learning, and I hope that is sustained, is that we become more comfortable with having these type of conversations, just asking someone, how are you doing? And sometimes probing a little bit more than we would normally do. Think about our conversations before. I was telling someone, my conversations with my boys before, it was, when I really reflect on it, we talked about nonsense. We talked about nothingness. We talked about sports. We talked about this and that. Matter of fact, half the time you run from one place, you go to dinner, you're trying to figure out where the next club is, and then what were we doing? And now we have no place to go. We have nowhere to go. We sit on Zoom for 3 hours. But you know what? Those 3-hour conversations, I could tell you, have been more meaningful than the past 3 years I had with my buddies in terms of connecting with them and knowing who they are. And I think we need to spread that, throughout our work, our lives. And maybe that despite this tragedy of we lost 1 million people on this earth, maybe on the other side of that, we will be better for that. I hope. Again, what else can we do but remain positive?
No, and yeah, and to your point, you know, we all have jobs. We all have a gift that we're trying to share with everybody, and like I said, sometimes, man, I'm just like, you know, I'm the funny guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm supposed to be the funny guy. Like I'm supposed to make y'all laugh. But some days I'm like, bruh, ain't nothing to laugh about today. like I ain't got nothing today, man. I ain't got nothing. But then sometimes there's other days where I'm just like, and some of it has to do with kind of remembrances, like, man, you remember? And like to your point, Dr. Eves, some of the conversations that we're having now, you know, that I'm having with my kids. My kids are in their 20s now. And, you know, I think some of these conversations we've had lately have been probably some of the most substantive and deeper and laughing, you know what I mean? Like, we're talking about stuff we used to do. Remember that? You know, because life, to me, life is like that. Life is like, you know, when we're talking about remembrances, it's never usually, you know, remember that day when the sun was shining at its brightest, and remember everything was perfect at the wedding. That's never what we remember. You know what we say? Remember you fell? Remember when you fell? You fell. Remember that? You fell in front of everybody. You know, that's what we, you know, remember you bust your ass. You know, remember that you bust his ass. It's never the most perfect. It's something that went wrong. But that's okay. That's, you know what I mean? Like that it's okay something went wrong, you know? Back in the days when I was married, I had an argument. My wife and I, we had an argument. And I'm one of those guys, like I used to like to break out. Like I'm like, yo, I'm out of here. You know what I mean? You know, women I deal with, they want to argue. I'm like, nah, I'm breaking out, right? Because I know that's gonna make them upset because they want to argue, right? So that's part of my thing. So one time we had an argument and I was in the right. You know, she was wrong, whatever the situation was. She was wrong. I was right. I was like, yo, I'm out of here. And she's like, no, don't go. I'm like, no, I'm out of here. You dead wrong. And so I walk out the front of the apartment and she's following me. She's like, no, stay and argue with me. And I walked out of the front door and I tripped. And I fell like, oh, like face first. You know what I'm saying? Like, and she's right behind me. I tripped on the stairs and I'm like face first, just like this. And she's right behind me. And I'll never forget, she looked at me, she said, that's what you get, nigga. And I didn't have nothing. I just got up. I brushed my, you know, I got gravel on me, everything. I'm looking crazy, man. Like I brushed stuff off. And the only thing I could say was, yeah, that's what I get. And then I just kind of broke.
When a black woman says, but God don't like ugly. God don't like ugly.
Exactly, yeah. And but you know what? And this is my ex-wife. Like, we laugh about that to this day. You know, like, remember you fell, motherfucker? I'm like, yeah, that's your fault. Don't, when you got the moral high ground, don't fall. you lose everything. You lose everything, man. So, oh my God. So, yo, I don't know how we can keep riding. This has been pretty awesome, and I you know, the same energy that we had last time. I think we had this. It's even better. I appreciate you guys. you're teaching me a lot. Like, you know what I mean? Like Dr. Val is you know, is the ever optimistic, you know what I mean? There's always anal, you know.
There's always anal.
When all else fails.
Can you put a condom on, please?
Exactly. Right. And
yes.
then and then
put
to your point,
Dr. Eve for anal.
Right. And then Dr. Eves is the, you know, is the sobering voice of reason, you know. Dr. Eves is he is our condom, you know.
Yes.
I didn't sign up to be nobody's condom.
He is our wine drinking safety net.
It's not safe.
Exactly. No, I mean that with all due respect. Right.
You know my favorite line from patients that we all as physicians collect them. The condom broke. To me, that is like you were not wearing a condom.
Absolutely.
Just be straight with me.
Well, yeah.
The condom broke.
I've been on both sides of that. I've been in there when the condom broke, but you just, you know, you're in for a dime, you're in for a dollar. You know, we're here. You know what I'm saying? And you just keep rocking. You know what I mean? And you know, then
kid, can you translate that? Can you translate what you just said? I got it.
Look, I look for a rapper. I only have 3 kids by 2 different women. For a rapper, that's pretty good. You gotta admit that. You know what I'm saying? For a rapper or a basketball player, like I know dudes got 10 kids by 10 chicks. So I feel
we're not judging. We're not gonna judge. It's just the what so.
Well, you're right. Yeah. You don't need one. Oh.
You know, in the pop culture side of things, it goes into relationships. The Megan Thee Stallion, you know, prominent rapper right now, Tory Lanez, prominent rapper at the time, you know, the situation with the assault and with a weapon, and you know what we're kind of seeing as a result of that. We can talk about the culture of masculinity and you know the things that have happened. And I know you guys aren't necessarily in tune with social media, you know, all day, every day, but we can kind of speak to the relationships between Black men, Black women, and what can we do to ensure maybe a more cohesive and inclusive, you know, culture of relationships that's fair to, you know, the relationships between Black men and Black women.
Okay. I will say this. One of the things that because I've been obviously reading about the Megan Thee Stallion Tory Lanez situation. One of the things that I'm curious about is after all this time, there still seems to be a disconnect with what happened, what people think happened, what might have happened. You know, like for my money, if this dude shot her in the foot, how come this dude was never arrested? He was never, like, I don't, that part, like, I don't get that. And trust me, that situation happened like not far from where I live, like very, very close. Just up.
He was arrested though. He was arrested.
He was arrested. He was arrested.
Yeah. He was. Wasn't he arrested, Brandon?
Arrested when? When was that?
Yeah, I believe he was arrested at the scene, but it wasn't necessarily for the
He was arrested. All right. So was he arrested? Right. Was he arrested for like possession of firearm?
That's exactly what happened. He was arrested for possession.
Possession of firearm. All right, but not for shooting her.
No. Right. So the narrative, the overall narrative, and what I've heard and what the friends have corroborated was that Tory shot Megan in the foot after after they left the Kardashians' house and they got into an argument, allegedly petty, and Tory pulled out a gun and shot her. The exact sequence or how or why specifically he shot her, what motivated that isn't clear, but that seems to be the overall consensus.
Chris, kid, you're a rapper.
Yes.
Why do rappers have guns?
Bro, I don't know. I've never had a gun. I've never had. Yeah, I mean, that's
from what? From what? Jeff?
From other people.
And that's because that's the
people,
world.
Jealous people that want to kill you.
Why is the gun often unlicensed?
Because you can't have a legal gun in New York.
Well, they was out here, but I know what
California,
you're saying.
you can.
Wait, and you know what else too? Don't. This is what you got to remember about Tory Lanez and people like him. He's a little guy. He's little. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. He's little. He's short of stature. A lot of times, these cats, it's a mental thing. It's just like you a little guy. And you feel like you need a big, a little guy needs a big gun, or it makes him feel big. You know what I mean? But I never got into that. Like, I mean, Jeff could tell you, from back in the days when we first got famous or whatever like that. I mean, we had security that maybe was armed because there's a lot of crazy people out there. But this is something different. This is you drunk, you high, you got a pistol, you and your girl have an argument. I heard all kind of stuff. I heard that she was jealous, she was mad because he was trying to kick it to one of the Kardashian girls. And you know what I'm saying? And guess what? And she's a big chick. She's big. She's bigger than him. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly. Megan Thee Stallion, for real. You know what I'm saying?
The Stallion.
Exactly. And the word on the street is like when she gets lit, she can get rough, or she's tough. She's tough Houston chick. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, who's to say? But I don't like But to me, that stuff was always like really distasteful. I never got into that. I never got into the gun vibe. I never got into the hitting chicks vibe. You know what I mean? Like, in the hip hop game at certain times, that was a thing. I'm like, yo,
kid, I asked the question for a reason because unfortunately, our youth, our Black youth, they see this. And this is from the top because this is our top. Quote unquote, right? These are our leaders.
Yeah.
If you're in the hood, these are our leaders. These are people they're Instagramming, they're following. And what does that do? That transcends down to our community. And what does that lead to? These are the kids I have to patch up in my emergency departments every day. So that's why I asked the question, why is this happening at the very top or at our leadership? This is our leadership. And we got to start to look at it. We joke about Trump and his leadership and his irresponsibility.
Yeah.
These are our leaders. I saw Megan Thee Stallion this weekend. I was fortunate enough to be on SNL in the audience. Her foot was wrapped up. And I looked at it and I felt, it made me think about so many things. We could have lost a talent.
Yeah. So
luckily, she was just shot in the foot, but God forbid she was shot in the chest.
Yeah. Not only that, but
she's a talent. She's a leader in our community. Her show, if you see on SNL, was empowering. She has a message. Exactly.
I watched it. It was, and to your point, we have to call that out when we see it, okay? And no matter who it is, no matter how successful they are. I was watching what's his name has been in the news lately. Dr. Dre has been in the news lately because he's going through a divorce.
Divorce, yeah.
they're going through a big time divorce. The wife, she wants $2 million a month. She's whoa. But if you remember, I don't know if you guys remember this. This is years and years ago. Dr. Dre beat down a woman. Her name was Dee Barnes. She had a television show that said some unflattering things about Dr. Dre back in the days. And when Dr. Dre ran up on her at a club right here in LA and damn near beat her to death. And now you hear about Dr. Dre and with the headphones, and he's a billionaire, and nobody talks about that. Like, yo, you beat a woman down. Look at all the years that we turned away from R. Kelly's antics. Huh? What he was doing. Cats knew about that. You could say the same thing about Michael Jackson. We turned the blind eye because of their talent. And to your point, Dr. Eves, yeah, we can't shake a finger at the Trumps of the world if we're not going to point a finger at people in our own community. That stuff is unacceptable. I never got down like that. Like I'm far from perfect, but you're not supposed to put your hands on a woman or just vile things. Like, people holding women hostage. Like, what is wrong with you?
What if she hit you? What if she hit you, though? What if she hit you?
Walk away. Okay. I've had women want to kill me, and I'm like chase me. Like I'm like I don't want to fight you, man. I'm run away, man. That's how I was raised, man. Mm-hmm. I never hit a girl. Never hit a girl.
It's a good thing you're not a little man.
I know. You know what I'm saying? No, but you know what I'm saying, right, Dr. Eves? You know what I'm saying? Sometimes there's like this little man complex.
Napoleon complex.
Napoleon complex. There you go. You know what I'm saying?
But it's not just little guys. Really, I ask these questions because we need to delve deep into the psychology of it all. Why is this happening in our community? And it's not just little guys carrying; it's big guys. So the Suge Knights or whoever. All of these guys are carrying. What is it about? Why do we feel so unsafe? We're in the United States of America. We're not in, I don't know. My family's from Haiti.
Dr. Eve, you got to go on the streets of Brooklyn, Dr. Eve. And you'll
look, my family.
Listen, I am from the streets of Brooklyn. I've had a gun pointed to my head. So I'm not speaking.
Yeah,
I'm asking questions.
My people are from Jamaica. You know what I mean? Jamaicans have had a love affair with guns. You know what I mean? That's part of just violence. Period. They used to call it a cutlass. I'm a cutlass. They didn't call it machete. Mm-hmm. They call it a cut. Yeah, I'm a cutlass. And they'll chop your head off, or it can be a gun. A rocket launcher. It's for some of us, it's like ingrained in the culture, but it's just something that I've never I've never been down with. I've never been down with that. Like please.
I've always felt like when it comes down to the topic of guns and it comes to like violence overall in general in the Black community, I feel like it always kind of boiled down to the socioeconomical inequalities that kind of have been rooted in America. It's because crime kind of perpetuates crime, and we call a major term in our community, we call it like a crabs in the barrel mentality, where like, if I don't have, how dare you try to have more than me? And I think when you kind of look at the trickling down of that mentality, or, just poverty in general and how poverty kind of cannibalizes itself, then you can really get some answers. And this is important to me because, also kind of like on the topic schedule, we're talking about the upcoming election, and especially particularly within Black America, what are we voting for in terms of solving these issues such as young Black men and, young Black women and their struggles in particular situations like, Black men
Breonna
having
Taylor.
to survive in their communities, whether, they're perpetuated to be someone who is holding that gun in their confrontations, with police and, having that preconceived notion that they're dangerous and they're, armed and having their constitutional rights violated as a result of those stereotypes. So, and I kind of went a couple different places with that statement, but how do you guys feel, going into this election season and, the outlook on, kind of the political climate of the world?
I think it starts with us. I don't think there's any, you got two choices, right? Two viable choices. I don't think that either choices really respond and can answer this question. I think it's the questions that we're asking amongst ourselves, holding ourselves accountable for what we can, right? And there is definitely things that are systematic in the system that prevent us from getting to certain places. But there are certain basic things that we started talking about that we have to address. Like, why is there a need for a established, successful singer, rapper to have to carry a gun? And who are these people who are coming after him?
Right.
What are their needs? What are they missing in their lives? Where have they been derailed, and where was the direction lost? These are things that are happening in our community. These are our children that we delivered, that we're breeding. I think a lot of it starts with us. Now, there is obviously accountability, and we have two choices to make. They're not perfect choices. Mm-hmm. But we can't just rely on that to be the fix for our community, for our children. Again, I want to get to that place where I understand, where did that kid make that decision? I have to carry an illegal gun because someone who looks like me, and most of the time it's someone who looks like him, is going to come after him. Where did we go wrong? I think it's fundamentally it's education. I think, from one spectrum is education, a basic education. And then you could get to my level and everyone here who has graduate degrees. That's a different conversation of why we can't get to another level of CEO. But they're two different conversations. Like, what's happening in the first, second, and third grade? That's why are we derailed? So Kid and I went to two incredible schools in New York City that cost us nothing. But somebody at some point guided us and got us to that place. And those experiences, I've just met Kid, but I could tell you, going to those schools and being in that environment transformed us. It was a precedent for the rest of our lives. And we'll still be an anchor for the rest of our lives. The people that we met, the people we're surrounded with. So how do we get that kid in the hood who's not doing well, whose parents can't guide them to that place? And then there's another conversation. Now, okay, we've got all the graduate degrees. We're successful artists. We're successful in our fields in sex therapy. We own our own businesses, but we can't get to another echelon. That's a different conversation about networking, about who you know, about sponsorship. We could take these conversations so many different places. But, honestly, I'm not worried about me. I'm not worried about Kid. I'm not worried about Dr. Valerie. I am worried about that kid who made a decision that I need to carry a gun. Mm-hmm. And that's the kid I want to speak to and understand.
Exactly. You know, I love what you said, Dr. Eves, and I want to speak to it from the point of the emotional complexity of, you know, transgenerational toxicity, you know, African American slave syndrome. That's where I speak to this conversation. For me, it really, I've been looking at science and research, understanding generationally what's happened within our DNA, that where our gene has changed, it's modified. And so that's a lot of science and a lot of research to understand why we do certain things the way that we do, understanding the syndromes of why we act a certain way. And that might sound harsh, but there is a lot of science that's coming out now around transgenerational toxicity and what it does to the African American body, what's happened from your great-great-grandmother, and it's passing all the way down. And I really honestly believe that we have to have, you know, a deep conversation, an ugly conversation, you know, around why Black men want to beat and shoot Black women. Why white women are held at a higher echelon, as one of my friends used to say, echelon, than a Black woman. You know, why there's a level of protectiveness around her, but not around a Black woman. And Brandon spoke to that about stereotypes, understanding sexual and racial stereotypes, which were formatted in 1765, and we're living into that today. We are absolutely living into the Jezebel, the Mammy, the Sapphire, the BBC complex. We are living it. You know, I'm going to share a story with you that really broke my heart. There was I had a white client, a female client, who, and I'm just going to be straight, she loved Black dick, loved it, to the point where she had tattoos of BBCs all over her body. A white lady. I mean, and it was shooting out sperm. Like, I'm like, you know, they were everywhere on her thighs. And when the riots started, and you know, there was looting that was going on, I noticed that within her Facebook, you know, post, that she was saying, well, let's send all these niggas back to Africa. You know what? And she was just really had much venom because she saw these riots going on. And when she came back to my office, you know, I looked at her, I said, so if we send all the Black men back to Africa, who are you gonna lay with? Says you don't wanna do white dick, you only want Black. Long story, I fired that client. My values, attitudes, and beliefs, and I can't work with a client like that. So there is such a conversation we have to have around the BBCs. We have to understand the complexities and the competition of Black men and white men, and how the system of racism has formed around this to keep our Black men in shackles and chains, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically. You know, it's a deep, ugly conversation. And I'm not afraid to have it. And I think now with this platform of us getting together and having this, maybe this is a start, really going there and like going deep and working in all these complexities to help our people love and appreciate ourselves, because we are valued. And, you know, I hate to use the word king and queens, but we are king and queens. We are valued and we have so much to offer and always will. And it comes to us really now doing the work, because the portal's open for us. So now it's people like Dr. Eve said, like myself, like him, like Chris, doing the work, having these hard conversations where we can change mentality, where we can help our people understand there's a better way. You know, Dr. Eve, you're right. Why are the rappers carrying these guns? I never understood that. You know, I'm from the boonies. I carried a gun for protection. I lived in I grew up in Delaware on a little Indian reservation, Nanacook tribe. And so I learned how to shoot a gun at 10 years old for own self-preservation. I knew how. I still have guns. But I didn't do it just because. So I really wanted to understand how we can impact our people, especially our young people, because the three of us, we're okay. But how do we do that?
No, I I couldn't agree more with both of you, and in a weird way, there's so many stories that I could share, but
Dr. Eve, can you give something to kid for that cough?
Right. I'm good. I took a test.
Pedialyte.
I know. I'm good. Right. But you know what? I've so many times that I've heard this story. Like fans will come up and you know, they'll be like tough guys. You know, like tough guys, like guys that do carry guns, you know, thugs, and whatnot. And they'll come up and tell me a story, or they'll run into me at the club and take me aside and clear it out, like whatever you want. And it's a weird vibe sometimes, because I'm like, well, yo, you like you're a tough guy, man. Like you're a tough guy. You're a thug. Like what do you you know what I'm saying? What do you want with me? Like how did I, you know what I'm saying? How are you a fan of mine? And they'll tell you, oh, well, you know, like when I was a kid, I was this and that. And then it's a weird kind of dynamic. But it's almost like I've had guys tell me, it's like, yo, man, like I don't want to be this way, but in my world, I have to be. Like, I don't, you know, like I know guys, you know, cats that you know, shoot and have killed people. And they're like, yo, V, I don't want to be that way, but I have to be in my world. Like they tell me, like, yo, you're not in my world. My world is dangerous. My world is hectic. They smoke weed all day long just to keep themselves sane, just to keep themselves from hurting other people or themselves, you know? And I always found it weird, like why, how do you, I was like, you like Kid and Play? Like what how did that happen? Like and how did we lose you? Like you could have stayed on that path, homie. But to your point, Dr. Eves, you know what? I agree with you, and especially in these days and times, like the conversations that we have with one another these days, they have to be more meaningful. They have to mean more. Like I don't got time. I don't got time to bullshit with you, man. I don't got time for that, man. Cause I don't know how much time we got. So I need time that's valued, and I need time that's going to be meaningful. I need conversations that are going to help me, uplift me, make me laugh, inspire me, or I can inspire you. That's the type of tip I'm on right now. I'm not for the nonsense, you know, because we don't have time for that. We don't have time for that.
Hey, Kid, you absolutely inspired me. It's a pleasure to be here with you. It's a pleasure to be here with Dr. Valerie, with Jeff, with Brandon. Amazing in your own rights. Amazing in everything you've accomplished to this day. I want to touch on something that you said, and that's mental health. Those cats that you're talking about who are smoking weed because they can't deal, sometimes they're hearing voices. Sometimes they're bipolar. We've seen this again with some of our leaders, some of our rappers who are now coming out and expressing this. But I've heard some of their lines from years ago, and I was like, oh my God, this guy is bipolar. This singer is bipolar from some of the things that they're saying, some of the demons that they're facing. I've listened to some of my hero, Prince, my musical hero. Some of the songs that he was expressing, he has a song called My Little Pill. Unknown B-track thing. The guy was lonely. The guy was a legend to the world, but the guy was lonely.
Mhm.
And
a pillhead. And he was a pillhead.
Yeah. And again, you know, there's so many stories around that, right? Who are his friends? Who are the doctors around him who fueled this, but never really dealt with what his issues are?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
right?
It's very possible. It's very possible that our president has a mental illness. I have no idea, guys. I have no idea. Again, I'm very careful about what I say, but it's very possible. And you know, Chris Rock just said on SNL, there's only 2 criteria to be president of the United States: 35 and born in the United States of America. That's it. Yeah. And he said it's harder to get on Jeopardy than to be president of the United States. And so, mental health is something that we also need to speak about in our community. That is taboo. Just as Dr. Valerie, same thing, sexuality and not being straight is a taboo in our culture. Mental health is a taboo.
Absolutely.
And to Kid's point, it's time. It's time to deal with this stuff. It's time to get down to what is really, really real.
Mm-hmm. Speaking towards your Dr. Eves regarding mental health, you know, one thing that I noted in my profession is the lack of Black mental health professionals, and like an area where I live, Delaware, for example, and all over the country, a lack of the stigma around going to someone, because, you know, Black women, we can figure it out ourselves, and a Black man is just not going to open up. Again, stereotypes that we live in that bubble of stereotypes, and not willing to go out and get help and have the conversations, because we as a people suffer enormously with mental health concerns. From our grandparents, our great-grandparents, to us, we suffer so much with clinical depression, bipolarism, you name it, we suffer and we don't get help. And it trickles down into our next generation. So one thing that I'm a really big advocate for is really getting out to younger people and guiding them into the careers of mental health, Black mental health practitioners, so that we feel that we can talk to someone that understands our concerns. I've been to non-Black mental health professionals. They didn't get me. To be honest, they didn't get me. And they look at me like, they didn't get it. I found myself, and my clients would say, I found myself explaining myself, my Blackness, because they didn't get it, versus going to a Black mental health professional that would understand. So that is something I'm really passionate about, Dr. Eves, is really talking about mental health and really getting us the help that we need here so that we can be all we can be physically and mentally and emotionally.
That's what's up.
Kid, we need a joke.
I know, right? I was thinking the same thing. Where's that white lady with all the dicks tattooed on her?
She in Florida. You want a number?
So kid, she half the time you good. Half the time she gonna love you, and half the other time she gonna love you.
I'm trying to tell you. Oh my God, that's crazy.
Kid, what do you think about with Cam Newton catching COVID? You know, with the NFL, Dr. Eve, what do you think? You think they could still keep having a season with this pandemic going on, and everybody's still trying to make it as normal as possible?
Listen, I'm going to tell you, one of the things I've been really, really impressed with is the NBA, the men's NBA. That bubble, I thought that bubble was going to burst. I thought that bubble was binary. It was good when it's good. It was going to be terrible when it was terrible. But somehow, I think we need to study that. They still got a game to play. I think the Lakers is going to close it out.
Yes.
But they did something well. And as a medical professional, I am surprised by it. COVID, yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, and if you look at the other sports that haven't, bubbled, that they've had problems. The NFL is having a little problem. The Major League Baseball had some hiccups. early on, and occasionally they do. But you're right, with the bubble was the way to go. And if they can, finish it out, you're right. It bears studying and repeating. I just, I mean, it's unfortunate. I don't. Jeff talking about Cam Newton, and I don't understand how it must. You guys are doctors. Like, you could catch it. You catch it anywhere, can't you? I mean, you just, you know what I mean. If you're not hermetically sealed, it's got to be very difficult to not come across it and be affected by it.
COVID is nothing to F with.
Yeah.
It just,
It's not.
I wanted to tee that up for my man.
My girlfriend bought this for me. She bought this for me. $10. $10.
I had a question for you, Dr. Eves, about something. So why do you think that the White House has such animosity towards the CDC and Dr. Fauci? Or maybe this doesn't seem to make sense to me, why he discounts this man. Can you speak to that a little bit? I think the world wants to know.
So this is my take. This is not necessarily from a medical standpoint. And I think, listen, we have different sections to us. Besides being a doctor, I think I'm a thought leader about, things politics, not by training. But ultimately, this is a man in power. He got his power from a certain segment of the population. By all measures and numbers, this segment of the population is not educated. Now, when I say not educated, that sounds derogatory. Not educated in a formal way that we consider education. That means that they're not. It doesn't mean they're not educated. It doesn't mean that they don't have smarts. They're just not educated in a formal way. And I think he took advantage of the fact that these are people who, like certain religious people, go by what their leaders tell them and don't necessarily challenge that. I think it's the same thing I mentioned about religion. Some people do not challenge religion. It is what it is. The leader said it, and it is so. And I think he took advantage and has taken advantage and continues to take advantage of that. So a guy like Dr. Fauci is antithesis to his approach to holding power, right? Dr. Fauci is a learned man in an academic way. That is not the kind of person that his base necessarily responds to. And unfortunately, our country has been divided in this way. And it is unfortunate. And this is all this comes down to. It's really, we are so divided that we cannot have cross conversation anymore. And I'm trying to find, where do we have that middle ground? I try to find that with my patients. I try to connect with my patients, no matter where they come from. That is the first thing I think of being a successful leader, of being a successful physician, no matter where you're, you have to connect with that person in front of you at some level. Because ultimately you will never get to the end, which is collaboration. You want to collaborate. You have fired a patient. You have walked away from a therapist, as you mentioned, because there wasn't a connection.
Right. Yep.
And without that connection, there wasn't a trust. And without that trust, there's not going to be a collaboration. So if you don't connect with me as a physician, and I tell you, you need a pill, and I prescribe pill A, what's going to happen when you walk out that door? You're not going to take the pill.
Exactly. Nope.
You know,
put in trash.
And it's trash. So this is where we are. We as a nation, we're disconnected. We're just not connected, and we have put people in boxes. But you can't put me in a box. What box are you going to put me in? The Haitian box? The physician box? The 1% box? The male box? What box? What box are you in, Dr. Valerie? What box are you in, kid? You know, and this is what we've done with our nation. We put people in boxes. I'm not a box. I don't fit in anybody's box. You don't fit in anybody's box. Kid doesn't fit in anybody's box. No one fits in a box. But unfortunately, we have gotten to a point where there's two boxes, and we got to get out of these boxes.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's something I've just been wondering about. You know, why would you discount, you know, Dr. Fauci the way the White House has, you know, when, you know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And so thank you for elaborating on that. Yeah. So
he's in one box.
He's in one box.
And Trump is in another box.
Absolutely. So are one of those boxes, you know, I often wonder, you know, the flag, the Trump flag, has that Trump flag, has that replaced a Confederacy flag? I've often wondered about that. Are they one and the same now, those flags? I wonder. You know, I see, I was somewhere in Virginia, and I saw, I was in Shenandoah area, and I saw so many Confederate flags, and then they were also hanging the Trump flag. And I'm like, wow, you know, has that really replaced?
Yeah, for a lot of people, they're one and the same.
Yeah.
You know, I can recall we were performing in South Carolina. This was a few years ago. I think it was Columbia, South Carolina. And I remember we had finished performing downtown. It was an outdoor thing or whatnot, and we were heading back to the hotel. So we're driving in the city streets, and I saw a family walking together. I think it was like a mother and two kids. The kids were, I don't know, you know, 11, 12, 13, something like that. Not big at all. And one of the kids had a Confederate flag, and he was wearing it like a cape, like over his back, like just holding it and wearing it like a cape. And his mother is walking like right alongside of him, right in front of him, right nearby. Like she knows what's going on. And he, you know, and it just threw me. I was just like downtown, you got the kid wearing a Confederate flag as a cape, downtown Columbia, South Carolina, but that's how they get down. So back to Dr. Eve's point, these are the boxes that we find ourselves in, because that behavior is learned. That behavior is taught. Somebody told his parents or his mother that was walking right alongside of him, told him that was cool. You know, he was like 11, 12. He didn't buy that flag. That flag was bought for him. And he's been raised so that when you could wear it like a cape, walking down the street in full view of everybody. Yeah, there ain't nothing wrong with that. That's fine. That's how certain people are getting down. And I think in times like these, when people's emotions and psyches are ever so frayed with the pandemic, that kind of pushes people closer to that edge, to, you know, their worst fears and their innermost you know, anxieties. And people a lot of times, and especially if you feel like you have a standard bearer in a guy like Donald Trump, Man, look, I don't think there's any more racist now than there was when he came into office. He just made it cool for them to come out the woodwork. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same amount to me. Mm-hmm. He just made it real cool for them to be bold and to you know, say what they want to say to whomever they want to say. You know, I mean, you know, you got guys walking down the street with torches and they don't even cover their faces no more. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, wow, y'all used to cover your faces. And now they're like, nah, you know what? Our guy's up in there. He sends us these coded signals and these little messages, and he tells us, he doesn't tell us to stand down. He tells us to stand by.
Stand by, yes.
Say what? Be like, oh, dip. Like, they're so bold with it right now. And who knows, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a good thing for the rest of us, because, you know, now we can see them coming. But you know, it's a wacky world, yo. What can I say?
So to your point about this kid, you know, who learned from his parents, you know, I whisper in my son's ears every night, you're going to be great. You are great. You're going to be great. You're going to do good things and great things with your power. He says that he recites that back to me every night. And that's where it starts. And that, you know, that's where I'm like thinking, like, how do we get the kids in our community to wear the right cape, to rock the right cape, the cape you are, kid. When those kids were coming at you, like, yo, I got you. I was surrounded by that also, same thing. Yeah. You know, people, you know, one of my best friends is locked up. I haven't seen him in 31 years. He got another 2.5 mandatory. This is a kid who had all the potential I had, but he felt, for whatever reason, to your point, he had to have a gun. He had to do whatever he had to do. Those are the kids I lose sleep over.
Look, my father in a similar situation. You know, when I was young, my father, you know, who was a Jamaican immigrant, he would tell me the same thing that you tell your son, but it's just slightly different. He would say, like, you know, you're gonna be great. You're gonna do great things, or I'm gonna kill you. He just added that part at the end. Like, he was as nurturing as you were, as Dr. Eves, and then he just put that little point on. There's a little point on at the end, you know.
So, kid, you're alive.
I'm gonna kill you dead.
But you're alive. You're alive and thriving. So
yeah. That was that. And you know what? Look, I guess you know, we you know, especially when you have parents of Caribbean descent. You know what I mean? It's a different kind of vibe. You know what I mean? It's a you know, you have to, you know, respect. You have to respect them, obviously, and respect yourself. And there's a higher standard. They're like, look, you got to be better than the next man. You can't just be as good as the next man. You got to be better than the next man. That's what I was always taught. And you know, and they were tough. They were tough. They were tough. My father was tough on me, you know. And he was, you know, he was a great dude. He was a tough guy, because he was like, look, you know, he would tell me all the time. He's like, look, I'm not your friend. I'm not your homeboy. You know, I'm your father. So you're not gonna like me every day, and that's okay. He said, you know, he used to tell me, that's how I know I'm doing my job. The days you don't like me are the most important days, because that's why I'm giving you something you can use down the line.
So Chris, I want to memorialize this moment, because this is a critical topic that Chris just touched on. So Brandon, Jeff, Dr. Valerie, and I try to express this to my white friends. I'm not the Black voice, right? I'm not the Black American voice. My parents are from Haiti. They gained their independence right after America gained their independence. You know, my parents didn't know anything about racism as it is constructed in America. They didn't have any doubt that I was going to be a doctor, that my sister was going to be a lawyer, that my other sister was going to be a teacher. And there's a grit that you get, you know, from the culture, from being a Caribbean, of Caribbean descent. And I don't think we speak that amongst ourselves. And we have our brethren from Africa. We have our brethren from America. The Black American experience is not necessarily an experience of hope, where you've seen doctors and you've seen successful lawyers and sex therapists. And what is that? Like, you know, if you've been multiple generations in the hood, you know, in the projects, you know, you don't have that mentality. You don't have that grit. You know, your dad, kid, to your point, was like, you're going to be successful, period. There is no compromise. There is no other option. Where a Black American, that may not be the same value that was instilled, not because they're not wonderful people. It's a legacy that beat them down. It's a legacy of slavery that beat them down. Mm-hmm. You know, I even talk to my patients about, you know, and I learned this from another doctor, the food that they eat, right? To this day, we love oxtail. We love, you know, plantains in my community. But this stuff is killing us. But why are we eating these things? That's a legacy of slavery. Mm-hmm. We as slaves got the worst part of the animal, right? We didn't get the leanest part. We got the tail. Mm-hmm. And then what did we do? As every culture does, we pass down those recipes from generations to generations. Mm-hmm. And now I tell my patients, you don't need to eat the tail. You could eat it as for fun, for kicks, you know, once in a while. But don't eat that every day. It's not the healthiest part. You could afford, and it's affordable now, to get a leaner cut of the meat. Mm-hmm. You know? And again, these are conversations we really need to delve down and understand where we are and why we are. And to me, as a doctor, what do I see? I see the heart attacks. I see the strokes. It's all tied into, you know, what we live. I tell my patients, what's the content of carbohydrates in a plantain? I said, just Google it right now. They're shocked how much carbohydrates, how much sugar is in a plantain. Mm-hmm. Why did we eat that? Because maybe that was the only thing we ate all day to be able to cut the sugar cane to make the rum that the master mm-hmm. sold. And then we pass this legacy on. Mm-hmm. For another day, but yeah.
Sure.
Go ahead, Dr. Valley.
We need to, I love what you said, Dr. Eves, and you are so point on. Where we have to have that conversation around enslavement in America and understand.
And Dr. Valerie, I'm sorry, I don't like to cut off, but then you see your patients, then we put them on what's called a beta blocker, right? For their mm-hmm. high blood pressure. And then they come to you and they can't get it up. Mm-hmm. Yes, they didn't want you to fix it.
Exactly, fix it. Yep. Mm-hmm. It's so true. And, you know, so I want to speak to that really quickly because I think it's so important. You know, that we have this conversation around enslavement in the U.S. You know, I'm born, bred in America. My mom is from rural Virginia. My biological father is Native American on a reservation with alcoholism that just ran rapid, right? You know, my great grandmother, you know, was enslaved. When slavery was abolished, you know, she signed her indentured servitude papers back to the slave master. And I got her Juneteenth papers. I actually got them. And it's the most precious document to me, you know, that I have of hers. It just means the world to me. And one of the things that I research and talk about is understanding transgenerational, the legacy of enslavement, and how, like you said, doctors, even the food that we digest, that isn't healthy. We've got the scraps in Delaware. I don't know if you guys have it in New York. Maybe you do. We have Scrapple. You guys have Scrapple up there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Scrapple.
I remember that.
It was, when I was a little girl, we had hog killing days, and we would all come together and kill the hogs. And I saw them make Scrapple, and it's the scrap of the animal. But that recipe was passed down from enslaved ancestors. And, 20 years ago, my grandmother was still making it. It's the unhealthiest shit you'll ever eat. It's just the scraps of the pig. But you fry it up, put some syrup on, and make a sandwich. Couldn't tell me nothing back in the day. So we really have to have these conversations around the enslavement legacy and what it did to our bodies and our minds. And I just love, Dr. that you just tapped on that so eloquently. I think we have to go back and not be afraid to have that conversation. Because, I hear the two of you gentlemen being born in the Caribbean had a much different lived experience than I did. As I talked about earlier, my father, had a double barrel shotgun, and he taught me how to shoot, to protect myself, because we lived in the boonies and there was a Klan around us. And he taught me to use rock salt as the weapon, as the bullet, not the bullet. Because he said, in his mind's eye, if you shoot the Klan in the butt with rock salt, it's going to burn them, number one. They're not going to go to the doctor and say that they got shot in the butt with salt. And they're too embarrassed to go to the cops. So he said, use salt. But that came from an enslavement period, understanding why they did what they did to protect themselves. And so these are the kind of conversations that I think are going to be so empowering, that this group of people that we're having right now, I think we can really impact community. And if we go there like we're doing right now, it could be so powerful. I'm all inspired. I'm sorry. You can shut me up.
I totally agree. That was wonderful, Dr. Valerie. And I think all of these things intertwine and interweave, and you see how they play out in all our lives, in the entertainment world, how they play out when I get the patients, and ultimately how it impacts your love life.
Absolutely.
And then when all of that is messed up, what do we get? We get this big mess, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get people who are stressed out, fat, can't get it up, got no more jokes, they feel defeated, depression, and what do? They kill themselves.
Yep.
Literally, figuratively, kill themselves. And hopefully we could be a part of bringing something different to the table, a different kind of conversation that really gets down to the root of this.